Hello, Mgtow. Hello, men. This is Howard Dare. Thanks for stopping by. So, I want to talk about 15 years of moral terror for men. We have been enduring an onslaught, spiritual, moral, ethical, physical, financial, economic, institutional onslaught for the last 15 years that is truly unfathomable, unimaginable. And I want to offer some context because I believe that this is kind of like a slow boil, putting a frog in slowly boiling water. And they don't notice the incremental slow changes. This is like looking at yourself every day in the mirror and never noticing any differences because you're always comparing yourself to merely the day before, as opposed to comparing yourself to 15 years earlier. And I believe that the onslaught was so intentional, so vicious, that was unleashed upon the men that it's largely unfathomable. It's almost impossible to wrap your mind around it. So I want to give some context in this kind of big picture situation. So with that in mind, let's go back 2015. Barack Obama is president of the United States. Hillary Clinton is the heir apparent. This is what's going to allow them to continue, what they're doing. Now, towards the end of Obama's second term, we've got the Arab Spring, which is suddenly all of these Arab nations, suddenly populations revolting against their current leaders and replacing them. Now, this was viewed as a big success, hence the name, Arab Spring, right? Of course, we know that this was handing out free cell phones to the population, getting them on social media, and then controlling the narrative, dividing the population into smaller groups, factions, and then controlling them with a false narrative, whipping them up into rebellion and revolt until they can bring down, the current system. Pretty smart, right? Yeah, no doubt. This is really just one element of what's going on and what happened, right? So it starts to look like Hillary Clinton is going to lose the 2016 election, right? It's not looking good for her. And so these practices that we've been using externally are now brought to bear on the American public. Understand what's happening in a situation like that. You're dividing and conquering the individual identity politic groups, people. You're dividing people by their interests, okay? And you're pitting them against each other. And you're trying to create enough of those people that you get your critical mass to then overturn the existing norms of the society, okay? So these practices are brought to bear here on the American public, financed by the American public through one branch of the political system here in America. Understand that the onslaught is on the very principles and values and foundational structures and institutions of the society, such that you can bring it into chaos, such that you can control the system, okay? And it's not like it wasn't kind of obvious, you know what I mean? Like the idea of Trump going around and filling up football stadiums, with people who want to hear what he has to say. And Hillary Clinton being unable to fill up, a high school auditorium and having to bus people in, and give them signs and stuff. Right. So one candidate is essentially a force of nature, right, of this kind of dynamic, masculine, fearless, courageous energy, right? And the other one is a very elite, very, very intelligent, very qualified, but not a particularly strong set of motivations, right? So you're looking at this and you're like, well, this is kind of inevitable, right? This is like two fighters coming into the ring and one of them is sick and underweight and scared and trembling, and the other one, they look pretty good. It's like, well, we, kind of know how this is going to end, right? But the whole time we're getting this other story, right? the media is telling us, and the media is presented as, an attractive, middle-aged woman, okay, who speaks in a very stern voice. And she's saying that they're neck and neck. And every other male on the broadcasts are deferring to her and, being like, well, if that's what you think, then that's where we're going, right? Understand what is under attack. What is the onslaught there to do? It's there to undermine the natural order of things. Now, the other side could suggest that this is an oppressive, authoritative, patriarchal order, right? That should be overturned. But it's not. It really isn't. It really is just the objective, merit-based, functional-based requirements of any system in order to fulfill its function. Right? So we want qualified people in difficult jobs. That's what we want. And they get paid for that. We don't need a representation of some group's grievances in society, like unequal representation, okay, being the primary function of any job or institution, because you're sacrificing the function of it, right? Now, this is an interesting concept, okay, because if you're saying subjectively that anything is how we interpret it, the thing to understand here is not the individual instance of what you might be suggesting, okay, but the idea that it is in countenance to objective reality, to the functional requirements of the system. I operate under the premise that anybody I'm speaking to is at least as intelligent as I am, because I think it's a respectful way to move forward. Of course, we do have the Dunning-Kruger effect, which gets me into a lot of trouble socially. But here, let's put that aside. Now I've made myself sidetracked. So this emotional, subjective interpretation of the functional aspects of a system, in other words, the reason that we're hiring qualified people is not because we want them to fulfill their function, but because it represents some sort of oppressive aspect, some unfair, unjust aspect of our society and our culture. And therefore, we should hire people who are not necessarily qualified, but who represent some sort of disadvantaged demographic within our population. That is the just and moral thing to do, right? Like I can imagine Immanuel Kant is agreeing with, but it's more complicated than that. It's more complicated than I can understand. But, this is my view. So it's not merely an objection to the individual instance, but an objection to the idea of objective reality, functional requirements, qualifications, merit, skill, market value. It's in defiance of that. So a bunch of people compete at anything, and one of them is the best. But we give the trophy to the person who is the least worthy, because that's how good we are. So this idea, it's diametrically opposed to objective reality, to a merit-based system, to a functionally based system. That was the onslaught. And it's not just individual instances, it's any principle. So the idea that men should not compete in women's sports, okay? Or the idea that women should not lead men into battle. It's in countenance to any traditional working principle with the idea to destabilize the culture, the system, the situation. This is a basic con job move. This is what any narcissist does when they come into a new situation. They create chaos. They create emotional turmoil. That's their playing field. Okay, that's what I'm suggesting happen. An onslaught on every level of masculinity itself, on the very idea that an individual could have motivated self-interest. That's your engine of progress and humanity. Not submission, not fear, not control, but motivated self-interest. That's the engine. That's what gets people moving. They kill it. They destroy it. So the men, myself included, are walking around through this landscape, and we're thinking, this is really unfair that I lost my job. This is really unfair that she falsely accused me. This is really unfair that my ability to get promoted at work isn't based on my ability to do the job, but rather based on who likes me and who doesn't like me. And that is determined by this manufactured social order. In other words, a trans person, should be promoted because they're trans. And the hardworking person who's qualified, who has sacrificed and who has earned it, they should be looked over because we always promote those types of people. So what you're killing now is the motivated self-interest. Now, here's the thing that I want to share with you to understand. Let's say I'm in an unfair situation and somebody punches me in the face, all right? Here's the thing. The individual punch, the individual loss of the job, the individual false accusation, while it's not good, it's not that big of a deal. It's not going to hurt me that much. I can take it. So can you. This is indeed what the man is. He is this adaptable force to struggle and difficulty, right? It makes sense. But here's what I can't take. I can't take the idea that it's okay to punch me in the face unjustly, that it's okay to falsely accuse me, that it's okay that I can't get promoted even though I'm really good at the job. The idea, the environment, the principle, okay, that I exist in this environment, that's what kills my motivated self-interest. That's what kills my spirit. Understand? I think you do. This is what the men have been suffering. And, understand, it's an attack on every principle, on every fundamental principle. The idea here, let me put it to you this way. Why did the chicken cross the road, right? And you're thinking, okay, I've got the answer to this. I know this one. And you're pretty smart to get to the other side, right? That's the joke. There's something implicit within that. And that is the idea that the chicken wanted to get to the other side of the road. So why did the chicken cross the road? Because it wanted to. To say merely to get to the other side is to put a very empirical interpretation, very materialistic. There's a different word for this, and I'm sure you guys, some of you know what it is. But it's a very practical interpretation of reality. Indeed, wanted to get to the other side. Implicit within that is the idea that the chicken has its own wants and needs and desires. It's actually a very interesting, set of philosophy. Right? Like we think it's just a childhood joke, but it's actually a representation of a particular philosophy. And you don't get the joke until after you get the philosophy. People don't get that one. So what was under attack, what was killed, what was destroyed, what you've been dealing with was a psyop on the spirit of man. And this is why when a strong man steps up before the microphone, up to the podium, before the election, a large percentage of our population, they don't like it. They think that, that is the old way. They think that the person who should be stepping up to lead is the person who is least qualified to lead, but is in fact propped up to be represented in that way, because that's the fair group thing to do. Because again, that's, how good we are. We're not promoting the people who are qualified, who have merit, who have earned it, who can do a good job. We're promoting the people who we feel are the most disadvantaged. And you understand how this kills the motivation of the person who is good and qualified, noble, virtuous. And further, understand that this is the fundamental quintessential nature of man, or it can be. But you can reduce him down into a bitter, materialistic consumer, kind of like a woman, a weak woman, or a dependent child, or a dependent elderly person. And if you can do that, you can control the society. You can control the culture. You can control the economy. And what you're looking at is the idea of globalism. Just this idea that why did the chicken cross the road? To get to the other side. We'll kill it. No spirit, no animating, motivated self-interest. Maybe there was some cheap food over there. So this onslaught, this attack on the spirit of men, the spirit of good people, it's been set up, for a long time, 50 plus years, hundreds of years. But we've really seen it coming to the head, these last 10 years. Again, the American people rejected it, by electing Trump. Understand why so many people are upset by that. Understand why Europe and all of these weak men who betray their own countries are upset with that, because they're on a global they're making a lot of money through the idea of betraying their own populations, by causing strife and chaos within their own populations, by unsettling the ability of their own population to have a family, to build a business, to have prosperity, to obtain security, to take care of Maslow's hierarchy of needs in their own individual lives. That's what's been under attack. That's what's been destroyed. That's what's been trampled. That's what the fight has been over. So lastly, let me just explain the idea of betrayal, right? It's the betrayal of your own values and morals. Dante's circles of hell, the lowest circle, the deepest circle, is reserved for the betrayers. But I don't think it's those who betray others. I think it's those who betray themselves. And I think what you're seeing is this globalist, subjectivist, consumer, non-self-validating population against this hardworking, objectively reality-based, practical system builders based on merit, based on ability, based on functionality. You're seeing these two worldviews clashing. And for now, we're coming out of it for now. Understand that the foundations, the structure of this conflict, they're still in place. So you kind of know what's going to happen moving forward. You know that America is going to become much more practical, much less globalist, much less, this idea of America's, protecting and financing the world. We want equal trade. It's not our job to, protect everybody and to take care of everything. We're going broke. Other nations are not. So again, this is the masculine, practical, rational, objective, reality-based concerns coming back to govern our behavior. This is an environment where good men can prosper, where good people can prosper. That's encouraging. That's motivating. We haven't had that. The people that we've had getting ahead are people playing the victims, people finding fault with the system, people becoming dependents on the system, because a huge aspect of the system encourages them to do that. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about, and that's kind of the context of a lot of things that I'm going to be talking about moving forward are involved in. So let me know what you think about this in the comments section below. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, donate. I can use your support over on Cash App. There is no other support. You speak the truth, they shut you down. That's right, okay? We were deplatformed. We were censored. We were shut down. We were canceled. Anybody who spoke out against the system that I've just described was shut down with every dirty, unethical, un-American, unpatriotic, unfreedom-loving tactic that they could muster. And they're still trying to do that. So with that in mind, click on my Cash App donation link and help out the Howard Dare channel so that we can prevail. And join me again, Howard Dare, as I plan to have more content for you. Thank you, Mgtow.